My name's Dave DeBow, founder of MoneyPartnerFormula.com, and this show is built for everyday real estate investors who are actively doing deals and looking to scale using other people's money. So if you're an active real estate investor and you want to get featured on this show to talk about your own real estate and capital raising experiences, then just go to daveinterviewsyou.com. Now let's get rolling with this episode, and remember to subscribe for daily interview content. Hey folks, welcome back. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever been kind of overwhelmed with all the data that we're supposed to know and understand as active real estate investors? Chances are, if you're not a super numbers focused kind of person, it's one of those things you kind of put off to the side. You hope that you're doing something right. You go by your gut. Well, today's special guest, zooming in from beautiful San Francisco, is a very experienced and accomplished real estate entrepreneur. Neal Bawa has over, my goodness, I think it's over 5,000 units in the portfolio. Is that correct, Neil? A
Just
thousand
about.
investors, tons of deals done, close to $1 billion under management. He definitely knows things when it comes to real estate investing. And his claim to fame is he is the data guy. He is the mad scientist of real estate data. So, Neil, thank you for being on the call. Look forward to having a chat.
No, thanks for having me on, Dave. Yes, that's right. The mad scientist, because I look at everything from a perspective of data. I'm autistic, and I've always seen data in everything that I do in my life. I measure my own life in several hundred different ways every month. I'll measure everything from, the usual stuff like how many steps I'm walking to how often I have sex, because I fundamentally believe that you can only manage what you can measure, and even your personal life is something that you should be managing.
Interesting. Wow. There's a lot that we can unwrap there, my friend, and very, very fascinating. But this really doesn't come naturally to most people, does it? I mean,
Mhm.
you'll perfectly understand that for most of the rest of us, the whole idea of tracking all of that kind of stuff, you know, throws us for a loop. So, what do you
It does.
recommend
Mhm.
for us regular folks who don't have those inclinations and talents like you do? What are some of like the basic things we got to be looking at for data wise when we're looking at a property? Let's look at a small multifamily. I know you guys are into
Sure.
buying and developing really, really big properties. A
Yeah.
lot of our followers are in the smaller multifamily space. Tips, tricks, ideas, suggestions?
Sure. The first thing I'd like to say is being data driven is no different from, let's say, exercising 3 times a week or doing all the things that your doctors tell you, eat well, don't eat garbage, all of those kinds of things. So what happens is over time, we do a lot of things that we're really not looking forward to doing. I want to eat pizza, but I don't. I eat salads, right? And I don't want to exercise, but I'm fanatic about exercising, right? And I do 3 different kinds of exercise. It is you're exercising yet another muscle. And that
Mhm.
muscle is this data-driven muscle. And so what I encourage people to do is understand that this is a mindset. Okay. So the first thing is I want you to get better at data for your favorite sport. So I want to start with, I'm a football fan, right? What I want you to do is basically over the next 6 months, I'm going to really get into the weeds on the numbers in football. I want to know how many yards are rushed by, this guy over here. And you might say, I'm pretty good at that. No, what I'm saying is go one step further. I want you to go one step deeper because you're helping train your mind on this. And if you realize, if you say, I'm really, really good at numbers with football or with basketball, whatever it is my game is, then you're actually ready. Then you're actually
Mm.
ready to move that into real estate because your brain fundamentally believes in the power of data, right? Now you have to believe it. Your subconscious mind is there, but your conscious mind isn't. And so that you have to basically move into that. So then if you feel like you're really, really ready with sports, now you can start moving into something else that's interesting because you've convinced your mind that data is very important for you. And I want you to pick basically any realm of real estate that you want to pick. It may not even be one that you're ready to invest in. Maybe it's Airbnb because you find Airbnb fascinating. Maybe it's something else. Pick something that's really, really interesting and
Okay.
try to on YouTube. find people that are data driven, that actually have data driven conversations about YouTube. As you can imagine, I'm a geek, a nerd, a dork, whatever you want to call me. And so my YouTube is filled with people that are data driven, right? And these are people with numbers and charts and graphs. And 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 I can tell you, YouTube is much more entertaining when you're trying to be more data driven than any other form. And that is why podcasts are extremely popular on YouTube. There's, hundreds of millions of views on podcasts on YouTube every day, right? And so when you're starting your data journey, try to find people that are interesting, that sort of break these things down in an easy fashion, and that will help you along on your journey. Yeah, and the last thing I'd like to suggest is remember a couple. These are two of my favorite sayings.
Sure.
Number one is data beats gut feel by a million miles. And we love our gut feel because we think that somehow gut feel is tied to data. And maybe it is, maybe at some subconscious level it is, but most of the time it isn't. The reason we think that our gut feel is really good is we are very good at remembering our successes and very bad at remembering our failures. If we were to document every gut feel that we've used in the last 5 years, uh, you would find that you're right 50% of the time, not 51, not 49, 50. That's the same as flipping a coin. That's what gut is, right? And we all think that we're better than that. How can it be? How can it be, right? If we were all better with our gut feel, we would all be richer, right? But the
Well,
world is is an
I'm
average
chuckling,
place,
Neil. I'm
right?
chuckling, Neil, because it reminds me of my first marriage.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yes, that's actually a very good way to point this out. I think everything averages out.
Mm.
And so the vast majority of the time, the people that think that their gut is better than others are deluding themselves. Yes, there could be certain people whose gut is better than other people, but for every one person that thinks they're better, there is a person that's worse, right?
Mm.
So remember that data beats gut feel by a million miles. And the second thing is you can only manage what you can measure. You can only manage what you can measure. If you cannot
Yeah.
manage it, you cannot measure it, you're not managing. You're being driven along by whatever the hell is happening with that asset, with that market, with the economy. You're just being moved along. You really don't have any, you're sitting in a boat and the boat's going in some direction, right? But the moment you start to measure it, you get some level of control. So for all
Mm-hmm.
of you control freaks out there, understand that there's no better way to be a control freak than to be measuring.
Very, very good points, Neil. And I was just thinking when you're giving the recommendation of, start working out that measurement muscle with your favorite sport team. I'm not a big sports guy, but I am kind of following your advice because right now I'm really focused on my personal health and trying to lose a bunch of weight and eat better and all that kind of stuff. And that's what I'm doing. I don't consider myself naturally inclined towards data, but every morning it's jotting out, okay, how much did I sleep last night? What time did I go to bed? What time did I wake up? Measuring the blood pressure first thing in the morning, measuring the heart rate, weighing myself, measuring myself every single morning, then tracking exactly what I eat every day and at what time, and then tracking exactly what I did for physical activity and how many steps I went and all that kind of stuff. It's a colossal pain in the ass, but it gets easier the more that I do it. And you're absolutely right. You start to track that. You start to see the improvements. You start to see where you stall out and what you can do to kind of get things back on track. And like you said, so wisely, it gives you a little sense of control where otherwise you're just kind of winging it. So yeah,
Absolutely,
good.
absolutely. So, my background, so as you can imagine, I'm a computer science, graduate with data science as my specialty. So it's always been there in my head because I was,
Yeah.
diagnosed with autism when I was 9, and you know, luckily that got fixed to some level, but my affinity for data has never gone away. I look at the world in the perspective of data. So today, when I'm looking at the world, I'm looking at the single family market. I'm looking at the small multi market, and then I'm looking at the large multi market. And what I'm saying is each day I want to spend at least 30 to 60 minutes gathering useful pieces of data and identifying them by reading articles and watching YouTube and reading research reports. And then I want to say which of these is really the most important, because you can get overwhelmed with data. You started
Yeah.
this podcast by saying, you get overwhelmed. I get overwhelmed too. So it's no different for me. what I'm good at is picking the pieces of data that really make the big difference rather than the small difference. And over time, by asking yourself this question, over the last 6 months, the things that you thought were big, were they big? Right? Asking yourself that question, that is the next step in being data driven. So gathering data and using data is the first step. The second step is benchmarking your success or failure. So going back and saying over the last 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, the things that I did, the actions that I took based on the data, were those actions successful? Did the things that I guessed would happen, did they happen? And if they didn't happen, why didn't they happen? Because usually by asking that why didn't they happen, you realize that there's a different data point out there that you didn't think about. Or maybe there's something that was much more important that you thought was less important. And so, when I was looking at, why inflation isn't going down in the first half of this year, I was trying to understand. My math shows inflation should be going down very smoothly, but all through Q1 and Q2 of this year, inflation was very sticky. Now starting May, it really started to trend downwards. And so the data point was that the Federal Reserve, the way that they measure inflation, the way that the CPI index measures inflation, a big component of that is rents and mortgages, right? So believe it or not, the biggest component of inflation is rent slash mortgages, 34%. And then after that, you have stuff like oil and food and healthcare, right?
Yeah.
But the biggest single one is shelter, right?
Interesting.
And so I was very confused about, like, in my mind, inflation should be coming down very smoothly because I was finding rents were negative in the United States. So what had happened is in the last 12 months, and we're in beginning of Q3 2024, the last 12 months, rent growth in the United States has been flat.
Yeah.
And so I'm like thinking in Q1, I know rent growth is flat. I'm in that business. I have 5,000 units. I can't raise rents right now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why is it CPI showing such a big number for shelter? Well, so I dug into it, and eventually I found out that the way that they calculate shelter, it's always 6 months late. And there's articles on the web about the fact that the way CPI, has inflation calculates shelter is always 6 months out of date. And so what I wanted to happen did start happening in May, June, and July. We've had fantastic inflation prints, all below 1%, right, annualized.
Yeah.
And so now that those numbers are there. And so what was missing in my data was this piece of information that inflation is always 6 months out of date.
That's huge, right? I mean, if you don't know it, you
It's
don't know
massive.
it. Yeah. Yeah. It's massive.
Yeah.
It makes a huge difference. I want to switch gears for a few minutes, Neil, away from the data, even though that's your specialty. But the other thing that you do amazingly well is finding and recruiting and retaining investors for your deals.
Mhm.
So if you don't mind, maybe share with us the 30,000-foot view of what do you do and what's working well for you for finding investors, engaging investors, bringing investors on board for your projects, because a lot of people are struggling with that, especially these days.
The first thing that I do differently is I take a long-term view.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There's a lot of, I want to close this one deal. I want to get a bunch of investors. And that's fine. I started that way, and you should as well. But understand that everyone has to build their present and their future at the same time. You're building your present and
Mm-hmm.
your future at the same time. There is never any time in the future to build the future. So you have to allocate a certain portion of your time for what you do today, like finding investors for the building you have in contract. And then you have to spend a significant portion of your time building tomorrow. Currently, when I'm speaking to Dave Dubow, I am building my future, right? So one of the things that I've told my team, and I have a dedicated person for this, her name's Pia, she's the one that contacted you, Dave, is I want to be on 2 podcasts every week of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to have a third event, which could be a conference. I present at about 15. I want to, or meetup. I present at 12 meetups of my own meetups, and then maybe 12 more that other people's meetups, e-conferences, stuff like that. So I want to have 3 events a week. And these 3 events a week are designed to build my future pipeline of investors, because I'm looking for
Smart.
people that have a mindset similar to mine, or people that appreciate my mindset. Maybe their mindset's different. They just appreciate mine. And so build your present and build your future, and use 2 different strategies, right? Your present is all about, hey, there's this amazing building and it's gorgeous and it's got all these, things about it, and you should be investing in it, and here's your returns. That's me.
Yeah.
But you never stop building this other piece. I find that investors somehow their general partners, people looking for investors, their
Yeah.
time management is not the best because they're not able to say, I need to have two buckets and I need to be disciplined about making sure that the present bucket and the future bucket are both there. Most of the time, I find your present bucket, what I'm doing today, overwhelms your future bucket. And that's why you're not able to build large pipelines of investors, right? We recently at my company celebrated our 1,000th investor. And we only take
Congratulations.
accredited investors, and the minimum investment is $100,000, right? So we've raised $325 million from individual investors. We don't take money from family offices. I don't like them. We don't take money from institutionals. I hate them. And so I work with individual investors that are looking to invest money because I feel like that group has less access to grind than family offices and institutional. And so they're better folks to work with. But I knew it would take me 10 years. So this is my 10th year. And so it's taken me 10 years to get to my 1,000th investor. It's taken me 10 years to get to my $300 million raised, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a process, and you have to do your present and your future together. And when you're building the future, this is not as important for the present, because you're just trying to talk about this one building that you have in contract. When you're building your future, you need to look at it from a perspective of brand development. And everyone's brand is different, right?
Mm-hmm.
My brand is I'm the mad scientist of multifamily. So my goal is to present my investors with very, very, very high quality of data that's very, very, very visual. You got to see my webinars, right? And I want to focus on the kind of investor that likes that and not try to have everybody in my funnel. I think people are like, I'm going to appeal to everybody.
Right.
Appealing to everybody is the same as appealing to nobody, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've got to have a bucket. On YouTube, you've got all these, maybe you're a Republican and you have all these, favorite guys that you have on your side. If you're a Democrat, you've got a different set of favorites. Have you noticed that the Republican guys are not trying to get Democrats into their funnel? They're trying to get Republicans into their funnel, right?
Right.
So that's because people have a core set of beliefs. And what you're trying to do is to find a powerful belief, right? And there are many such powerful beliefs. And you're saying, this is my core belief. And then you've got to create lots and lots of content around that core belief. And then you create an audience of people that are like you, or they simply like what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that becomes your funnel. This approach
they're
of they're
like you or they like you.
never works. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, they are like me or they like me, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's what's missing. People, and you might say, what is my core belief? Well, I think that there needs to be some soul searching, right? Because what I find is, if it's not truly your core belief, you'll be caught out. You won't be as compelling, right? As I said, I measure everything in my life, right? When you were talking about the health stuff, I measure and I run experiments. So I'll give you an example of why my core belief is so strong. I'm 52 years old, and at the age of 50, for the first time, I suffered from farts, from flatulence, right? Because until then, everything in my GI tract worked. I was younger and blah, blah, blah. But then basically, because I'm Indian, there's a lot of, lentils that you're eating. Lentils cause gas. And so I started suffering from that. And I became obsessed with the idea of, I'm going to fix this, but I'm not going to take Tums. I'm not going to basically take medication. I'm going to figure out what works for me, what works for my lifestyle, something that I can do. And so I experimented with a bunch of different superfoods, right? And I wrote down my experiments just like you are. I'm writing down all my experiments. I'm sort of writing down my experience. Do I feel bloated this week? Do I not feel bloated? But go through a bunch of different things. And my answer to it was, to completely fix this issue once and for all I had to do is take 1 tablespoon of sauerkraut, which is considered to be a superfood, right?
Yeah.
And so I experimented with kimchi and sauerkraut and a bunch of other things, right? And eventually I fixed it, and I have never had any kind of gassy or bloated feeling. And as a secondary benefit, which I didn't even anticipate, my lactose intolerance vanished. I don't know why, but I guess it's because sauerkraut has good bacteria and they're cleaning up all the bad stuff that is happening with lactose in my GI tract. So this is how obsessed I am with my core belief, which is data beats gut feel by a million miles. Yeah. What you have to do to gather thousands or hundreds of thousands of investors around you is to have a core belief that you truly, truly believe in. So first figure that out. And once you do, double down on it, then quadruple down on it, and keep going. Maybe only 1% of the internet believes in this belief, but 1% of the internet is millions of investors.
Mm-hmm. Very, very well said. Neil, a fascinating conversation. Thank you very much. This has been a lot of fun. You've got a ton of value, got a ton of stuff out there if people want to connect with you, if they want to find out how to do their own data analysis, or they just
Mhm.
want to get into your sphere, where can they go? What should they do?
Well, I'm lucky that I'm the only Neil Bawa on the World Wide Web. So as long as you spell my name correctly, Neal, not Neil, I use the Irish spelling. Um, as long as you type in Neil Bawa correctly, the first 10,000, 15,000, links are all about me, including all the videos. So that's easy enough to follow me. The second way is to go to Multifamily University, which is multifamily followed by the letter u.com. So www.multifamily.com. I do a dozen webinars a year where I share my thoughts on things that catch my attention. So obviously all kinds of real estate, single family, multifamily, um, you know, industrial, Airbnb, self-storage, anything that catches my attention in real estate, and then anything that catches my attention in general, from AI to climate change. We do webinars on all of them. So that's a great place to engage. And you'll notice that we will never have a salesperson call you. The only way to become an investor with us is you make the phone call, because we do not call investor, the people that are in our community. We simply, in the webinar, have a 60-second, it's never longer than that, advertisement, so to speak, about a project that we're doing. And that's all you'll get, 60 seconds. And you can be following us. There's people that have been following us for 5 years. They've never missed a webinar. They've never invested with us. Maybe they're not accredited. Maybe they're not interested, but they like the data. And so our community is designed to basically get 1.25% of the people following us. So out of 90,000 people that follow us, 1,000 are investors. And the others, it's just a public service. They're getting something of value and they're moving forward in their career. Now, to answer the last part of your question, which was, how can people gather data about their market? I think you're the expert of your local market because you live there, right? So there are 1,016 cities and towns in the United States. There are 323 metros in the United States. And it's impossible to be an expert on all of them. I certainly don't pretend to be one, but I do rank all of them. So I rank all 323 metros, and I publish that data every year in January, right? And my ranking is not the best because I don't fully understand what's happening in 323 metros.
Of
But you
course.
can, because you might live there or you have family members that live there. So where's the place to start? A long time ago, I decided I'm going to create a course that will allow anyone in 10 minutes to compare a metro that they liked with any other metro that they liked, or maybe they disliked, right? How do these metros compare? Are they better for which one's better for real estate profit? And it had to be a course that never required them to come get any information from me. So those were the two rules, right? The course is called Location Magic. I didn't host it on my own website. I hosted it on udemy.com. So udemy.com. Why? Because I wanted people's reviews to be independent. I don't have any control over Udemy because there are hundreds of millions of users and they wouldn't let me touch my reviews. So you can read my reviews. There's 1,000 5-star reviews on the course. There's about 13,000 people taking the course. The course is called Location Magic. All it does is in 90 minutes, it makes you an expert on one market by following a set of 5 rules. The course is updated every year, so you never need to come to me. You never need to come to my websites or join my subscription list. But I think if you take the course and you like the mindset that we use in the course, how do we rank cities, right? How do we know that this city is better than the other city? Then you're probably likely to join our ecosystem. And about half the people that take the Udemy course join our ecosystem, and some of them, 1.25%, become our investors. So that's probably the best place to start. So
Wonderful.
udemy.com.
Neil, thank you very much. This has been a lot of fun.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody, take care, and we will see you on the next episode. Hey there, I really hope you enjoyed that episode. And as always, if you want to listen to more daily interview content, make sure you subscribe. And if you're an active real estate investor and you're doing deals and you'd like to get featured on this show, then just head over to daveinterviewyou.com. Now, at moneypartnerformula.com, we help real estate investors to create a process for predictably getting capital so they can do more deals without relying on hard money lenders or the banks. We do this by building them a private capital marketing system. Now, if you want help turning yourself into a big money capital attraction machine, then book a call with our team to see how we can help. Just visit moneypartnerformula.com to find out more. All right, take care, and we'll see you on the next interview.